Okay, let's get our lesson started. For today, area number 3, the homework. You should have done the homework quiz already. That was due during class time, and this will be due later on. So, should have area number 3 out, ready to take notes. I have some quick notes for you. The homework is odds only, so 1, 3, 5, etc. Okay, so here's the notes. I'll talk through them. Maybe you might just find it helpful just to screenshot this section and you could refer back to it, but we should know these formulas. You've seen them all through grade school. We're talking about the area and perimeter of squares and rectangles today. We do get into some word problem work towards the end, but for the most part, just pretty standard perimeter and area. So just starting with the rectangle, okay, perimeter and area. Perimeter, I like to say it like when I'm in class. I always say the perimeter is just adding up all of the sides. I want to know what is the measure of just the outsides of a shape. In this case, we're talking about a rectangle. There is a formula, and this is the formula, and all it is, okay, 2 times L, and I have a little key down here. L is length, W is width. So 2 times the length of the rectangle plus 2 times the width will give you the perimeter. Okay, this also works. So if you just added all the sides together in your calculator, you would get the same answers as if you multiplied the length times 2 and then added it to the width times 2. It's the same idea. So that's perimeter. Area we should know is length times width. Today I'll get into more of why our units are squared. It's a little easier to talk about why like area is always like feet or square feet instead of just feet. I'll get into that a little bit today, but obviously, area of a rectangle is just length times width. Okay, and then we have the square, which we can simplify the formulas a little bit because all the sides are the same, right? So the perimeter is 4 times s, where s is the measure of all the sides. They should all be the same if it's a square, right? Here's a square right here, number 4, 8, 8, 8. This is going to be 8. So in this case, s would equal 8. We just plug in for s and the formulas would be done. Here's s, right? Okay. So the perimeter is 4 times s, or, again, adding all the sides together. And then the area is side squared, which is essentially length times width. It's just the length and the width are the same. So instead of writing length times length or width times width, we're just squaring whatever the side is. We're multiplying the side by itself. All right, so those are the formulas. I'll just run through some quick examples, talk about the units for a second, and then we'll go to the word problems. So we have a rectangle here for number 1, and we have these two sides here are equal, and obviously opposites here are equal. Sorry, I'm getting junk off my screen. All right. So we have our length and our width. Now, the length is usually the larger of the two. It is the larger of the two, so we're going to call the length the 7 and the width the 6. But for the most part, it doesn't matter what we call length and width for our formulas. It'll work out the same either way. So we'll start with perimeter. The perimeter equals, right, we have 2 times the length, which is 7, plus 2 times the width, which is 6. So I have 14 plus 12, which gives me a final answer of the perimeter is 26 inches. All right, and the area is length times width, 7 times 6. Now, I'm going to illustrate here why units are always squared with area. With perimeter, well, let's just talk about an area. With area, it's the length, which is 7, but it's 7 inches, right? So 7 inches times the width, which is 6 inches. 7 times 6 is 42, right? Which is going to be our numeric answer. But when we're multiplying 7 and 6, we're also multiplying inches and inches. What is inches times inches? And the answer to that is like the same as what is x times x. X times x is x squared. So inches times inches equals inches squared. When we're finding area, we're usually multiplying, some type of length and some type of width. It'll change per shape, but essentially we're multiplying two measurements together. And when we multiply those two measurements, we get that unit of square inches. When we talk about volume, everything is going to be in cubic. So when we talk about cubic feet, right, that's because for volume, we multiply 3 values instead of 2. But for area, it's always in units squared. Gosh darn it. Because we're usually multiplying 2 like side lengths or a base and a height or something like that. Okay, so that's why here our answer is actually 42 inches squared. It's a little easier to describe than with the circles. All right, there you go. So that that's that. I think we can handle that from here on out. Oh, and I didn't even write inches squared in my answer. There we go. Okay. All right, I'll do one square just to see it. Right, the perimeter equals 4 times the measure of the side, which is 3.9. I have to break out my calculator here. I feel like doing that in my head. 4 times 3.9 is 15.6. 0.6, and it's just centimeters. It's not centimeters squared because this 4 isn't 4 centimeters. It's the 4 sides, and it's not a measurement. It's a number. It's the number of sides. So that's just 4. This is still 3.9 centimeters, but this 4 is not centimeters. So that's why we just leave it as perimeters, just centimeters, because I'm not multiplying with 2 measurements, just 1. All right, and then the area is side squared, so it's 3.9 squared. 3.9 squared gives me 15.21. I think, let's see if I said to round to tenths. Nope, I would just leave it as 15.21. Pretty safe there. 15.21 centimeters squared. And there you go. The reason it's centimeters squared is because really what I did was 3.9 centimeters times 3.9 centimeters. It was a centimeter times a centimeter, which gives me centimeters squared. All right. And you can figure the rest of those odds out. Just go through, practice a little bit. Okay. So here, we're going to have to work backwards a little bit here. It's going to give us a final answer, and we have to find the missing side lengths, it looks like. So it says, how long is each side of a square? May help if we draw a square. Let's see if it'll do its thing. Yeah, okay. So we have a square. And all the sides here, we don't know what they are. Those are not 5s, those are S's. We don't know what they are. They're all the same, though. Okay. If the perimeter is 100. So what is the perimeter formula of a square? Right, go back. This is why I said it might be good to have this screenshotted. All right, perimeter of a square. You can see my little square right there. Perimeter of the square is 4 times S. Okay. So let's go back to the problem. So the perimeter of any square equals 4 times S. Okay. All right, well, I know what the perimeter is. It tells me the perimeter is 100. So instead of perimeter, I'm going to fill it in with its answer, which is 100 equals 4 times S. And now you're just solving an algebraic equation. Solve for S. What am I going to do to solve for S? In this case, since it's 4 times S, I'm going to do the inverse, divide. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So the measure of each side is going to equal whatever 100 divided by 4 is. 25. 25 what? Centimeters. So that's the measure of each side, 25 centimeters. So essentially you're just plugging in for the formula, except now we're plugging in, instead of plugging in for S, we're plugging in for P. You'll go through, you do that again. Okay, so let's see, how about for area of a rectangle? We've got another one here. The base of a rectangle is 12 centimeters. So, if you want to draw, find it helpful. Cool. The base is 12. Just call those the bases, and it doesn't really matter where we put them, I don't think. And the area is 96, right? That does not mean 96 is go here, right? Oops. Like, no way. It doesn't even make sense. Okay, that's not what that means. The area of a rectangle, area, equals length times width. So, the area is given to us. This is what gets the 96. This is 96 equals, and then we have it doesn't matter which one you plug in for. The 12 could be the length or the width. It's not going to matter. 12, I'm just going to fill it in first, times, and it says height, base and height, length and width. Same thing when we're talking about rectangles, okay? So I'm just going to call it h because they call it height. Maybe I'll switch my formula, equals base times height, because it does mean that. Same thing, base, height, length, width, whatever you're calling it. Okay, so base times height, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to divide, since that's multiplication, divide by a 12er. 96 divided by 12 is 8. So the height of this particular rectangle is 8 centimeters. And you can always go back and double check your work, right? Plug it in. Is the base times height equal to the area? We know the area is 96, right? So if the base is 12, which they told us in the problem, and then I multiply 12 by 8, do I get 96? I do. So that's the missing height is 8. And it looks like we have a few more of those, and that's it. Oh man, there's only a couple of these. Oh man, you should be able to figure that out just fine. All right, you have the rest of those. Turn it in before 11 p.m. today, and you should be good to go. Adios.